I have a question for Joan. Actually, it's a question and a comment. It revolves around one of the porcelain figures, one of the African American. That item is so charged, it's ridiculous.
You're right.
So I want to ask one: were you able to do any research to see if there have been any identified that are intact and still have paint on them to indicate if this is denigrating caricature of somebody?
The answer is no, but also with people I've spoken to at Seneca Village and Seneca Village, that's you there. Sorry, at Weeksville, they found it amusing, so I let it go with that. I didn't excavate that. That was from the earlier excavations from 1978 to 1982, and there was very little information about where it was. I know it was found in Privy. I don't know where it was found and what it was next to, what the feeling was, but my sense of it was that it was found amusing, which I found interesting. You know, we would say that it was disrespectful.
My statement about it really, in that line, is that it's interesting that of the items that are found in terms of those porcelain figurines, the only African American is one indicated as a laborer or a servant, while the others are not. And it really speaks to how children were pigeonholed into this is your job, as well as the white depicted images or figurines.
Well, those white figurines are called, oh goodness, I'm going to forget
Frozen
that.
Charlottes.
Thank you. 3 hours sleep does not help. Frozen Charlottes, and that was something that was used by everyone. Actually, it's interesting, there was a social thing that women used to stir their tea and their coffee. So those, they're different items. I understand what you're saying, Michael, and it's a very good question, but as I say, on the other hand, it's been perceived as an amusing statement by many people who I did speak to, and that in itself was interesting. You know, it was almost as if this figure were dressing up. You know, it was dressing up, not that it really was representing what it was supposed to dress.
Well, question for Joan. I don't know if you can see me. I want to ask if anybody else here is a descendant of Skunk Hollow or any of the other. And Sherry Jordan, if you're in here, raise your hand. Sherry Jordan is the director of the Rye Historical Society. Okay, my name is Teresa Vega, and I'm a direct descendant of most free black communities in the North New England, also Connecticut, New York, New Jersey. My ancestors are moved from New Amsterdam. Well, some of the ancestors were always here. Ramapola. I'm a descendant of Emmanuel de Angola, one of the first Africans from Angola, Spanish Negro, early 1600s. The descendant of John de Vries, a Dutch captain who came here with his Criollo wife from Brazil. I am also the descendant of both West African and the first enslaved people from Madagascar. My ancestors were always here. No, Ellis Island, always here. I don't know if you can see me in the back, but since several of the speakers talked about archaeology, I just came off of a 4-year strike court case in Greenwich, Connecticut, where our colored cemetery, Afro-Indigenous, was going to be possibly taken over by gentrifiers, and we won. So I have this cemetery. I have Cemeteries Matter. I have a website, RRBB, shop RRBB, or you can look up it on Twitter. I also have some business cards, but I'm sitting down now because I am not well, but I had to make it here. But I wanted to add a little bit more to Joan. I'm in the process of still researching a book that started off one place and now has encompassed many of what all the speakers have spoken about. But my ancestors left New Amsterdam 1678, and out of the 16 original founders, land grantees of the Tappan Patten, which is that region, also Rockland, Orange County, two of them were the Manuel family, the De Vries family, followed by the Van Dunks. And there were 16 land patentees. Out of the 14 left, 11 were the owners of our enslaved Malagasy ancestors. I have been researching, you can add to your story, and we'll be adding to it in my book, but I can tell you what some of them did when they moved over to the Tappan Patten. This is Sherry Jordan, the director of the Rye Historical Society. We're going to be curating the exhibit this year that will add to 1619 and 1620. But what they did was, through my own genealogy research, I'm going back to my Bergen County line, and our Malagasy ancestors, and we know this because we have M23 mitochondrial DNA analysis, which started me off researching all of the names. But they ended up, I have a cousin who's a direct descendant of the Ciscos, and he's like, "You're related to me." And I said, well, the problem we have in African American northern rural communities is the issue of endogamy. Normally I see that on my Puerto Rican side. It's insane in the Bergen County. For instance, my fourth great grandmother, who was M23, Malagasy descent, she had her first 3 kids were by an enslaver, one of which was my third great grandmother. She then went on to have a child, 5 children, by a man who was probably enslaved with the name Snyder. Their children married. We were Snyders. They married Thompsons, Ciscos, Hoppers, Browns. Who else?
No Olivers.
Olivers all over. Then their children, her grandchildren, turned around and married the same people. And then we've been tracing one Cisco line out where they had 14 kids. But anyways, I wanted to say there's more to that story.
Oh, believe me,
A
there
lot
is
more.
more. This was 15 minutes.
Oh yeah, I know.
There's a great
Yeah,
deal
so
about it.
look for us. We'll be in
Yes.
contact with everybody.
Question for Meredith. I'm wondering what other enclaves, communities were disoriented and destroyed by Central Park. Is there research being done?
So, do you want to take that response, or do you want me to? Yes, there has been research done on those other communities and other individuals. The book, The Park and the People, written by Roy Rosenzweig and Betsy Blackmar, the historians that I mentioned in my talk, did a lot of that work. So I would refer you to that. There were communities, there were Irish immigrant communities that seemed to be less permanent than Seneca Village. There were individual farmsteads. There were other landowners as well as people who were occupying the land. There were cemeteries. There are at least 2 Jewish cemeteries in the lands that became the park, as well as the 3 that we mentioned that were in Seneca Village.
Were burials moved?
Some burials were moved and others remain in place.
Where were the burials moved to? I'm just curious.
I believe some of the St. Michael's All Angels Parish were moved to Newtown in Queens.
And part of the A&E Zion burial grounds were destroyed evidently when the reservoir was put in, the modern reservoir.
Yeah, and a lot of the people also moved further up in Harlem as well.
There and some of that movement of people out of cemeteries had to do with legislation that was passed about where you could bury people at what time, at a certain point in time.
Teresa, to your point, I just wanted to say, if I may just add one thing. I visited with descendants, local descendants from Skunk Hollow many years ago. A man named William Thompson, another William Thompson. I couldn't speak with him. He was 80 some odd years old. He passed away soon after that, late 80s, and handsome. And he and his wife Dorothy on their television set had at least 20 photographs of their grandchildren, children, family. And I would say that it was amazing to see the range of color in all those photos. 20 photos, and they were all different, ranging from white looking to as black as could be, and it was fascinating.
And I want to say the thing I'm dealing with is some of my ancestors were black abolitionists, stayed in the African American community, some stayed indigenous, and some, like my family, went back and forth. So that's what
Yes,
it
it's all
counts for.
part of the picture. I also want to mention that Skunk Hollow did have a cemetery. I mean, as I say, I could only say so much, but there was a cemetery. The remnants of it, not very. I haven't been back there in a long, long time, and it's interesting. I wanted to go back because there was a trash can in the road that went through. It was there when I was there in 1976. It was there when I visited again just for the heck of it in 1990 something, and I don't know if it's still there, but I really want to know.
So I have a question for Meredith and Diana. The last two maps of Seneca Village that you put up on the screen, the one with the lanes of trees, there's a grid that's extended across the map, and then in the last map that you showed, the eviction map, it's as though all the lanes and houses and everything is snapped to the grid. And I wanted to know, which likely represents the real arrangement of all those things.
So that latter map that is arranged to the grid, we think is a very accurate map, and we think that in part because things like the measurements of the foundation of the Wilson House is very
Match the
close.
one, yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, the one structure that's not oriented to the grid, that's a good orienting point for the village, is All Angels Church, because it seems to be oriented to true north rather than city north, well, or cardinal directions.
It's also because the grid did go through what was Central Park. So I mean that grid, the 1811 grid was there in the
But the streets weren't laid out.
no, but the grid was
It was superimposed over the whole city, all Manhattan.
And there were lanes within the village that the houses were also oriented to as well that don't conform to the grid. So that old lane that you might have seen.
Thank you.
You discussed how Weeksville was kind of a deliberately planned community, and I know there's been some suggestions that Seneca Village was as well, just a few years before. And I was wondering if you guys felt there were any collaboration between the founders of both communities, or general discussion within the African American community in New York City at the time, or anything like that.
Don't have any evidence of
I
it.
haven't heard. Interesting.
Yeah.
May I just say one thing, and I didn't say in my talk. I visited Weeksville this recently, like 3 days ago or whatever, and it was wonderful. For me, it was wonderful to see what had happened. It's wonderful to see the excitement generated by those who were involved, who are here today, a couple of them, and it was so gratifying to see what has happened in this place that is now representative of so much. And it's been a beautiful job, and I recommend that everyone go there because it's uplifting, actually.